month of August looks like a month where South Africa can actually make a little bit of progress in the world, although, as ever, it's going to be mixed in with all our crazy politics. In many ways, a lot has settled, and we're on a path that has been established over the last few months. And you might remember from what I've been talking about, and of course from what's happening out there, that there are many challenges in all of that. Right now, the most immediate of those, the BRICS summit and implications of our foreign relations. Well, as you know, the Putin situation has been seemingly resolved. And what the chart says is, in fact, the part of the resolution is not just that Putin will be attending virtually from his own country, but that actually there have been deals done behind the scenes in order for this to happen. Surprise, surprise, I'm sure you're not, because the chart shows there's lots of stuff happening that we can't see to do with foreign partners. So certainly some of that has to do with Russia, but of course we know that the new countries wanting to join BRICS, and there's other realignments that are happening, wanting to happen, and there's lots of stuff happening behind the scenes. So be aware that most of what you hear about what's happening at BRICS and the results of discussions and agreements that are made and all of those kind of things are going to be in the category of you ain't seen the half of it. We don't know a lot of what's being negotiated and what's being agreed upon. It also reveals a kind of a shift happening in many of our international relationships, and that's also not too surprising and not too unexpected in every way. The net result of that is that we have some new allies and some new enemies, and there are still indications that in terms of our connections to whether it's trade or other existing areas of foreign affairs, they remain under challenge and under threat, be that, United States or any of the existing trade partners who are rattling their sabers and getting anxious. There still are a lot of issues. We might still see that there are problems arising with America, or that those things come out more into the open. It seems as if we are being told very little about little of the whole story, should we say, about what's really happening between South Africa and America in its trade relationship at the moment. But that might very well become apparent in the month of August. Whether we know about it or not, though, the chart certainly shows it's there, it's happening, and there's a reasonable amount to be a little bit concerned about as well. Be that all as it may, for the most part, financially, the country is looking quite stable in the month of August, meaning that our currency will continue to be, on the whole, stable, although it will, of course, have its ups and downs. That does look like a strong area of the chart at the moment. And it also looks like, as ever, there's a little bit of excessive spending happening. This not in a corrupt fashion. I mean, presumably that is still in the corrupt fashion, but we just don't see it. But this is about spending on things that could actually be a little bit more thoughtfully, can be a little bit more thought through before we actually spend the money. It's things like spending money on statues, which we've seen has been an issue lately, or spending money on things which basically don't serve the people, which are frivolous expenditures in some way. Where we will also be spending some money that is going to be a worthwhile investment is in sport. We know that salary equality and things like that have recently become highlighted in our sporting life in this country, and should be highlighted, and it looks like a lot of progress is going to be made on that regard. In fact, it looks like a lot of progress is going to be made in the sporting arena in general, although we've also had a few ups and downs, mostly downs, in recent months about that. It looks like things are getting back into order. And, we've seen in the past Banyana, the women's football, do really, really well for this country, as well as other women's sports, to use their categories. And we've also seen them asking for greater equality of pay, and that's caused, arguments and complaints and so on. But in fact, they are the people, the women's sports, various disciplines in this country, they are the people that are right now taking this country forward in terms of the sporting world and so on. Hopefully the Springboks will be able to keep up with the fact that so many other codes which are about women's sport, such as Neptune and women's football, are really making progress in this month. And as we know, in this country, when we do well at sport, our morale increases and we kind of end up doing well at everything else. Sport is such a valuable investment in this country because it's the one thing that brings us together more than most other things do. So if they want more money, give them more money, because it's an investment in this country, let alone the basics of what's fair and equitable in the world. In other political areas, we also see some conflict amongst the official opposition. They are getting quite strong against the government, and we see that various pacts have happened and discussions have happened in that regard. But it also looks like there's fighting amongst themselves, and that's actually not so good for the country at the moment. The area of the chart associated with the opposition is very unstable at this particular time. But it's also possibly good, because what's lacking in the chart is clear signs of policy and thought out policies, directions in terms of ideas, and what is it that we want. You know, so much in this country, in the opposition politics of this country, has been focused around getting the ANC out, and very little has been focused around actual better policies. But it seems as if there's a lot of arguments about ideas in the opposition area of the chart. But that's good, because that hopefully is also about negotiation. What is not good is that the chart shows it as aggressive, and each party in all these interactions holds themselves as the strongest and the most significant and the most important, and people seem not to be negotiating, but really trying to assert their different points of view on each other. We do need a greater sense of cooperation, not only amongst opposition politics, but even as perhaps the government is learning from its unnecessary visit to the UK. Perhaps what we're learning from them is the extent to which opposition parties and governments work together in committees in Parliament. There are many places where government and opposition can work together effectively. It's up to us as citizens to recognize you wanted to go to the UK, that's what you found out. Let's see it put into practice in the month ahead. For Aries, this looks like one of those months when you can finally get together some of the things that you have been trying to have happen for ages. These could be things like just ordinary stuff you've been trying to make happen and isn't happening, but it can even be deeper, long-term goals that have finally come to fruition, or that there are finally opportunities to do. Let it go the whole way. If you have to travel far and wide, spend money, all of those things, this is the time to really invest in your own future, bringing some of it forward by catching up with those ideals that you've had and carried for such a long time. Even if you don't have such big ideals to worry about, it's got an element of things shining brightly upon you. Good luck and good fortune often seem to occur at times like these. Luck isn't something that just comes out of the sky. Of course, the whole connection to good fortune tells us that this is really about you. Finally, you've done all the right things to put everything into place. You've put everything into alignment in some kind of way. So you can pat yourself on the back a little bit. Just make sure that you don't fly off into la la land. Your chart does show you need to make sure some foundations are solidly established, so that as you're making these ideals real, they can actually take hold. So don't let go of everything, the chore work and the foundation work that needs to be done, but do your thing. This is making the biggest stuff happen. It's going to increase your goals, your results, and even your social life improves. Have fun. Taurus, it certainly looks like there's some work to be done, and this isn't even the good old-fashioned slog work that gets your career somewhere. It's the stuff that should have been done ages ago. It's the stuff that's kind of the unfinished business, and perhaps it even does help clear the way for things coming up in future goals. So it's not all about looking backwards, but that can also be a great strategy for this time of the year. Your chart is saying that even though we're moving forward and should be beginning to wrap up some of our goals for the year, in order for you to move forward, you need to take a quick look back. Often we're so busy rushing forward that we forget that there's still some unfinished business or loose ends to tie up. Often we also just confused because we can't even see what's in front of us. If we readjust the strategy to how your cycles as a Taurus are actually going, the chart is saying you're not supposed to be rushing forward, you're supposed to be looking back. If you concentrate on unfinished business this month, you will wrap up a lot of things and really get yourself into a much stronger position. On the personal front and the creative front, things are still really working well for you. You may need to deal some unfinished business in relationships as well, but for the most part, this is a time when your own goals and needs become clear, can be brought out into the relationship, and maybe have some of that satisfied while you're busy dealing with all the slogging chores that you've got to do. Gemini, for the most part, this really is a going forward and getting it done kind of a month. The thing is, it won't be obvious from the results. And what you must not do is lose heart and think that nothing is really coming of it and no results are really happening. They're just not immediate. Sure, some of them are going to be there, but for the most part, this is a bit of an investment. It's a worthwhile investment. It's also a time when the people around you are really tuned into what you want, but you have to say something for them to know what it is. So making yourself clear and focusing yourself and the people around you will help you get your work done, your teamwork done, whatever it needs to be. It's also a great time to be heard in other situations where you need to be heard, whether that's your personal life, and this is a great time to be able to deal with tough issues in a harmonious way, but also where you actually need to assert yourself in your personal life. This is also a good time to make your ideas and needs clear, to put down your foot when necessary. Personal life isn't only about romantic relationships as well. It just is here really referring to anywhere that isn't work. This could be your other family, your neighbors, or anyone else that you have to engage with. You can clarify a lot of things here. You're being heard, you're being believed, your persuasiveness and charm is working for you, and you don't need me to tell you lots of situations where that can be helpful. So have fun. Cancerians, financial matters are improving slowly but surely. So don't despair. Don't rush to judgment too soon. It is a slightly slower process than maybe what you want, but it really is happening. What's really important to see in your chart that this is a constructive period for you. And, it's even a pleasurable and a fun period for you. And you've got to make sure you indulge in a little bit of that and that you benefit from some of that. In fact, this could be a great time to look at some of your goals that are not necessarily related to your larger achievements in life. We have to do everyday stuff. We have to deal with and enjoy everyday life, or as best as we possibly can, make it good for us. And this is one of those months when you really can do that. Sometimes I'm even referring to things like going to gym, and you might not think that's something enjoyable to do, but that's an investment in your personal self. It is a bit of a long-term goal, but it's all these things that really make you feel more like yourself and more like who you want to be that you're really able to concentrate on this particular month. So financial matters by the end of the month will balance up to that. And from next month, you'll be able to concentrate more and more on the professional goals that right now seem to be either eluding you at the moment or just won't put themselves onto the priority list. Don't despair. The priority is really to get your heart and soul intact now, and professional stuff will follow. Leo, this is really an opportunity to sit back, to kick back, to chill, and to relax. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen exactly like that, because there are still some challenges along the way. One of those is really that there's some areas in your life right now that you don't feel powerful or effective. It could have to do with something that you're relying on for other people, money, input, resources of some kind that should be coming up from others for you. And it just ain't happening, and you're not to despair, because actually it's rest and relaxation. Take a break, take a holiday if you possibly can, at least until your birthday rocks around. If your birthday is early in the month of Leo, then that's great. That's even going to be an opportunity to enjoy your birthday and get the good time you should be getting out of that. But it's just not a time where action and high-speed action is going to get to anywhere. So use this as an opportunity to kind of regroup, get in touch back with yourself and with a more familiar environment. It might seem as if in the recent past you haven't been quite in the right place, or you've been in situations which were a little bit uncomfortable, get back to home or get back to your happy place. This is a month where the environment can really feed you. Just make sure you put yourself in a right environment and in a beautiful environment that feeds that creative Leo soul, ready for the new Leo year ahead. Virgos, a lot about this month is going to feel as if you're not really making progress. And that's kind of a theme that many people are having to deal with. But like a few of them, you actually are. And you will actually find that all the hard work that needs to be done in your domestic environment at the moment is going to pay off. By hard work and domestic, I mean literally the house, the home, the bricks, the mortar. This is a great time for the spring cleaning, the renovating, the changing, the moving, anything that really needs to be done in the home space to make it more like what you need. It's going to seem as if a lot of stuff, whether related to home or other things, a lot of stuff that's been done in recent months doesn't seem to be going somewhere or fizzled out or was for nothing. That is not the case. It really is for something. And you're going to see many of your ideas be able to become into fruition after your birthday, not before your birthday, and your birthday is still another month to go. So you just got to go with the flow and go with the timing and get your priorities in order. Priorities in order at the moment is that physical domestic space as well as the emotional space within it. So that's family and the immediate environment around you. In that situation, you might need to put down your foot a few times. This is time to make clear what you need, what you expect, what's going to happen here, and sort out stuff around the home so that everything else can follow in the months ahead. You know, Librans, secretly or not so secretly, you are really the most artistic and creative of all the signs, because your planet Venus, who is the ruler of your sign, is able to express yourself creatively in so many different ways. In fact, for Librans, that's sometimes a problem. You can become a little bit of a jack of all trades and master of none, or worst case scenario, a dilettante. But this month is the month to put your creative energy into focus, because it really looks like it can fly. You've got lots of great ideas. You've always had lots of great ideas. And actually, you are good at expressing yourself. You are good at saying what you want to happen. So, you know, it's like being the director of a show. This is your month to be a director of the show. Whether you're actually out in a show, or it's your own life, or it's your own project, doesn't even have to be creative in the artistic sense of the word, but you are the director. And the fact is that you will discover, if you state your case and say what you need and want and all of these things this month, it seems as if people just want to listen to you. Their ears are suddenly wide open, and you can definitely benefit from that. In fact, your personal life can also benefit from that. This is a time to say what you need, say what you want, and say what the problem is, to address some of those issues in your relationship that could just be building up unnecessarily. This is a great time to clear the air, because you're going to be well understood and heard by all those around you. Great opportunity to clarify so many things in your life. Scorpios, you know, for everyone, this is a month of kind of dealing with old unfinished stuff and getting to the bottom of things. And you also need to address some of the things you've been avoiding about yourself, by which I mean taking care of yourself. There's lots of stuff you've let fall by the wayside. Maybe you haven't been to the dentist or some health check for ages. Maybe it's just in your everyday life you haven't cleaned the house out that you've been meaning to clean for ages, or your office or something like that. But it's really just getting down to the things that are about self-care at every level, because the chart is warning you that the putting it off, the letting yourself experience the stresses, all of those things is beginning to take its toll, even if you're not noticing it. So Scorpio, this is your doctor's note. This is your opportunity to say, actually stop everything that's rushing ahead, and let me just tidy up what's been left behind me so that my path ahead is going to be a bit more clear, because that will be the good result of it. So don't fear not making progress. It is a time to not make progress. If you try to make progress at this time, it's going to be like driving the car with the brakes on, and that can only damage the car. You're that car. So you don't want to incur any damage. You really want to get back to making sure that you're in a strong position to go forward with all your goals and everything that happens in the months ahead. Take care of yourself, Scorpio. Sagittarius is also one of the signs of been avoiding stuff and sweeping it under the carpet, and you're actually kind of better at avoiding stuff than most of the signs because you famously just move on anyway. So it's not just about avoiding and having all the consequences. You actually do let go of stuff and move on, which is great, but maybe doesn't always really make sense to the people around you. So this is one of the times you might need to have a look at, what am I not holding on to, perhaps that I should have been holding on to a little bit more tightly? What do I actually need to clarify in my life before I move on, before I rush off in some kind of a way? Other than that, some Sagittarians have been experiencing losses, and this is a time when you might have to learn to let go of stuff, whether it's a goal, some money, whatever the case may be. It's the things that you choose to not move on from that are pressing the button. Maybe you can even take a lesson from your ability to move forward and say, well, I know that in the end, moving forward always works, and I need to do that even when the tough stuff is going on. The great news is that there's plenty of stuff in your personal life that suggests good, warm input from important people. And there's plenty of stuff to suggest that this is an important time to be working on your spiritual life, the stuff that you do for yourself, on your own, behind closed doors, or the thing that really develops you. Some work on yourself is a great idea, Sagittarius. Capricorn, much of your year has been rumbling along with the hints and suggestions that there's some kind of advance or progress to be made in your professional life, and it looks like that time has arrived. This could mean you need to kind of step up to the plate or put your foot down and just take authority in some way. But you need to show whether it's authority or knowledge or the ability to lead and guide. This is a month where you might need to do that. If you're working on your own, or if that's not really relevant to the kind of work you do, it's still got the notion of you have to shoulder something at this time in order to kind of live up to that strong Capricorn image that has been building over the year that says, I'm moving forward with something. Many Capricorns might experience this as promotion or some new responsibilities, and there are big new responsibilities in your working life as well. This is then an opportunity to also clarify some of that working life. It looks a little bit like you have allowed things to accumulate, and there's too many things on your plate or too many things that need to be done in order to get a few goals done. So this is a time to identify and eliminate what's not necessary, what's outworn and outdone in your working environment, so that you can concentrate on the absolute essentials. Get down to the bare essentials, strip away the unnecessary, and your goals can get achieved this month. Aquarius, there's been lots of new input in your life in recent times, be that through people, through places, through what's available to you, through people, and that's all great. And as you know, that is going to advance your plans, but you actually need to make the connection between all these new and available resources and whatever plans you have. It's, in other words, time to kind of take the next step, change gear and get into, right, now that these things are available, I need to wait no longer. I need to negotiate no longer. I've got to put things into action, because Aquarius, this is your month of putting things into action. Mostly, I'm talking about professional goals, but it will apply to everything else that's in your life as well. It's like the time for preparation and for play has passed, and now is the time for serious, let's get this done. Many goals will require a bit of an adjustment and letting go of some ideals and dreams and illusions about them, but that's absolutely fine as well. That's also a pattern that is helping you and others go forward. So people you depend on are also going to be able to come with you along this road to really make one of your ideals fall into place. It might be an ideal you've had for a long time. It might just be the goals at the moment, but this is the time to actually make them happen and move on from the phases of getting it ready. Pisces are said to forever have the dilemma of kind of being, one fish is in the world and one fish is in the spirit world. This is one of those months where these two kind of opposing natures of Pisces really seem to be highlighted. The fact is, you can't avoid the stuff that's in the world. You've got to do your goals. You've got to do whatever it may be that needs to be done, whether they're professional goals or not. but spiritual things are high on your value system, and you're going to have to make sure you find some space for that as well. So Pisces, it's a month of balancing things out and making sure that both sides of these Pisces needs are being met. Otherwise, you're going to fall into that negative Pisces mode of escape and withdrawal. In fact, your chart does warn that you make sure you have a little bit of time for yourself and on your own, and a little bit of escape and withdrawal, just to not let the world overwhelm you in some way, especially since there's so many kind of professional goals important. And although Pisces can achieve huge and enormous things, it's a little bit like it's always, I just wish I could really get on with what's important about being a human being and not have to deal with the world all the time. So give yourself a little bit of that space. But the fact is, this is one of those times where you can not only deal with the world, but you can benefit from it and succeed at some of your goals. Find the balance, and you've got the best of both worlds.